Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today it's October 10th. We're about 1/3 of the way through. Today's video is going to be based on a discussion I had with a student today, a student I met for the first time. And, I'm very grateful that this person was willing to be kind of open and vulnerable and, have this discussion because it led to this video. And I'd like to reiterate some of that advice. In one of my classes today, we got to talking about mental health and depression in particular. And I had mentioned to the students there that I've dealt with, students in the past who have had depression. And so after class, the student came up to me and asked, if someone was considerably depressed or suffered from similar conditions, like what would I tell them to do? Generally speaking, my kind of rules of thumb that I've learned from various psychologists, various psychiatrists, and other kind of mental health experts. So there's going to be a variety of categories that you want to focus on. Physical health, you have social well-being, right? So your friendships, your relationships specifically, diet, and then you have lifestyle. So let's start with the physical health portion first. What I mean by physical health is looking at your physical routine. So how much exercise are you getting daily? How rigorous is the exercise? Where is it located? Indoors, outdoors? Things like what are your sleep routines and patterns and habits? Are you getting 7 hours of sleep at least every single night? Myself, this week, since I got my Apple Watch, I've been tracking my sleep, and the difference in my mood and my ability to be resilient against what's happening in the classroom on the day-to-day has gone up tremendously, because I went from sleeping about 5 hours and 50 minutes to last night I got 7 hours and 5 minutes of sleep. It simply can't be stated enough, the impact of sleep on mental health and well-being. It's very well documented. You can go and do the research. Matthew Walker would be a good source for the importance of sleep. So would Jonathan Haidt on the impact of disruption of sleep on the mental well-being of young people and people in general, to be honest. Once you got your sleep kind of figured out, and by that I mean basically understanding, what is your sleep pattern? Are you falling asleep at 2, 3, 4 a.m. and then having to get up at 7, 8, 9 a.m.? and just not getting enough sleep? Regardless of what those numbers are, if you're getting 6 or less hours of sleep, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. And so understanding that metric. The other side of health would be kind of what you're doing. So this student mentioned that he goes on walks and doesn't do anything too intense. And the thing is, you don't have to do intense, strenuous weightlifting. That's not really accessible or approachable for everyone. But I told the student, intense cardio has very well documented effects on mental well-being, mental health, and all of those positive mood lifting chemicals that your body can release. My personal go-tos, I love doing sprints. I love doing the assault bike. That's kind of a unique piece of equipment. I love doing bicycle riding and the row machine. Those cardio types I find to be low impact outside of sprinting, meaning I can do them and not suffer too many physical consequences of like knee pain, hip pain, ankle pain. Particularly if you're at a gym that has an assault bike, that's one of those bikes that uses its hands as well. You do 30-second sprints, 1 minute rest, 30-second sprint, 1 minute rest. You do that a couple times, meaning you do a 10-minute workout like that. You get your body moving, you get your body sweating, and you can sweat out anxiety and stress. You can sweat out low mood because your body now has a physical outlet to release that kind of negative emotion. Instead of just being stuck in your head, you get back into your body. So the first metric, make sure that you're sleeping enough and that you're doing some sort of exercise. In addition, kind of the last thing I'll mention on this note is that sunlight. So one of the easy ways to help yourself out in the mornings is get sunlight. So don't stare at the sun, but make sure you're by windows or even go for a walk early in the morning, early when the sun is out, to get access to sunlight. What this does is it kind of resets and recalibrates your circadian rhythms, which are your sleep and wakeful rhythms, and that's really going to help you out. So moving on, we'll transition into diet. So diet can have a huge impact on your mental health and your physical health. And that's noted in various books, various studies. And to not get too sophisticated, ideally you do want a good quality balanced diet. So you want to be eating whole foods to begin with, and you want to make sure that, having a bit of fruit, having a bit of vegetables, having different types of meat, having some carbohydrates in there is really going to be beneficial kind of as an overall rule of thumb Obviously, everyone's body is different. You're going to have to see what works best for you. But experiment with your diet. Like what you put into your body absolutely impacts the way you feel, the way you think, the amount of energy you have, the amount of willpower you have. All of this is going to be impacted by the food you consume. So make sure that you are consuming quality food. Make sure you're consuming enough. Make sure that you're cutting out foods that you know make you feel bad. Like for me this month with my challenge of the videos is to not eat junk food, because I know sugar does not do well in my body. So experiment, see what works best for you. But again, you want to eat whole foods and you want to eat a variety of foods that are nutritious, providing you a good profile of nutrients. Moving on to the social aspect. So while I was chatting with a student, the classes were transitioning. So I said, hey, look, we'll chat in the hallway. And then 2 other students ended up stopping. So I said to the student while we were discussing, what are your social relationships, right? Like, are you hanging out with people? Are you socializing? And as we were having that conversation, that's when the 2 friends showed up. So I'm like, well, clearly you have some friends, so that's good. The thing with friends is that's, they have that saying, birds of a feather flock together. So you do want to be careful of the echo chamber that you could create with your friendships. So you want to make sure that it's not just you hanging out with other depressed people and all you do is talk about being depressed. The last thing you want to do is make your mental health, your experience as your identity. And that's a very key point, that you are not your depression, you are not your anxiety, you are not your stress. You are just a human being who's experiencing that in the moment. So bringing awareness to what causes that. Sometimes it's an internal feeling, sometimes it's an external reality. Bringing awareness to that is very important, and making sure that you don't connect your identity with the experience of that emotion or challenge. So coming back to the idea of friends is that you want to make sure that you're socializing sometime a week, hanging out with some people, because when you socialize with friends, when you share quality time together, when you're laughing together, when you're just getting your mind focused on other things, that's going to help a bit of your mental health, your mental state. It's going to remind you that things are okay in the world. And I told the student, and this is an example in my own life, like I have some friends, sometimes we just play board games together. Hanging out with your friends doesn't have to be this expensive affair of, okay, we're going to go buy food, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, and it's going to cost me like $50 to $100. Just spending quality time together, watching TV, or maybe don't watch TV. Hanging out, or going for a walk, or doing some group activity together, right? Like playing a sport together, playing a board game together, drawing together. Doing something that is kind of actively engaging the social aspects of, yourself. So I would kind of advise against like watching TV or like hanging out and just scrolling on your phone, because the negative impact of social media is very well documented. Again, Jonathan Haidt has done a lot of work in that. Check out his work. But ideally, the hanging out is focused around good quality friendships that don't identify with the mental illness, mental health challenge, whatever it is, and that are kind of promoting well-being and getting out of our comfort zone, or kind of doing things that are joyous, let's say. Great example for anyone who's seen it is Winnie the Pooh. Hey, he's got all of his buddies and they hang out and they do their thing, and they always bring Eeyore along. They just accept that Eeyore is the way that Eeyore is, right? But Eeyore also joins them, right? And so the thing is, sometimes you're just gonna have to do things kind of depressed and low mood, and just trust the process, that if you're, being very physically active, you're being social, you're consuming good foods, that it'll take some time for your body to kind of overcome and adjust. The last thing I want to discuss, environmental factors. So I gave the student, like the student that I was referring to in the past, this individual is quite brilliant. And I said to this student in front of me that, of course, this student's going to feel terrible at school. This person has a bad sleep schedule. I'm well aware of that. They're very smart. They're in an environment where they can't really intellectually explore. They also know what they want to do after high school. And they just know that they have to get through this thing that's kind of boring, kind of lame, is not their interest, forces them to be in the building from like 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., which might not suit their needs and their schedule. And I said to this guy in front of me, I was like, no wonder, of course that person's going to be depressed. So do understand that sometimes the environment you're in can have an impact on your mental health, your mood, your well-being. But before getting to that point where like, I just need to change my environment, do ask yourself these questions. Do take good toll of How much exercise are you getting? How much outdoors are you experiencing? How much light are you, that common saying, like touch grass, get into sunlight. As much as it is a meme, it's also embedded and rooted in very valid information. Going out for a walk in the forest is going to make you feel better, kind of escaping that, not necessarily escaping, but leaving that kind of hectic environment and just getting connected with nature is going to make you feel better being outside. So take a toll of the things in your life, the things you're consuming, the food you're eating, the friendships you have, the exercise you're getting, the sleep quality. Make sure that there's nothing in there that's too far gone and everything is kind of in running shape. And then look at your environment if after 2-3 months you find you're still depressed. And obviously I will conclude with, make sure you are seeking help from a professional. Make sure that you are talking to people. Make sure that you're trying to work on this. And if necessary, try medication. A few years ago, I was very against the idea of medication, but my experience, my perspective has just kind of changed. And although I don't think everyone needs medication, and I don't think that that should be a first and only resort, I do think that if you tried the other things, be open to the idea of taking medication for your depression. Let me know what you think. Leave comments down below. If depression is something you've suffered with, feel free to talk about that. It is something that I've experienced at some points in my life, particularly in university when I really wasn't enjoying things. But, just understand that it's something that can happen to anyone. It could happen to you, even though you don't think it's going to happen. Life has a way of forcing you to grow and learn, right? Particularly if you're oriented in that way. And so early on, my perspectives were like, oh, I don't understand depression. I don't get it. Like, just keep doing your thing. And experiencing depression in university, it was essentially like everything was just gray. And I still went to class. I still did everything I had to do, but it felt gray. And obviously doing things was harder, but I just kind of felt robotic. And so again, my understanding of depression is very skewed by my own experiences, but I hope this video helps you. If it does, you're welcome. Leave a comment. Okay, goodbye.